Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a single source that outlines this concept called the willpower lie.
Right.
And the mission here is pretty straightforward. We really want to strip away the guilt and, the self-help hype around why you fail at your goals.
Yeah, we're looking at why treating your behavioral problems as moral failures is just completely objectively backwards.
Exactly. And to kick this off, I want you to think about a car breaking down on the side of the highway.
It's a really good grounding place to start, actually, because our reaction to mechanical failure is, highly logical.
Right. So smoke is pouring out from under the hood, the engine is sputtering, and you pull over. When you get out of the car, what you absolutely do not do is stand in front of the grill and, yell at the engine to try harder.
No, you don't tell the transmission it's just being lazy.
Right. You don't give the alternator a motivational speech.
You don't stand there feeling this deep, overwhelming sense of shame about your spark plugs.
Yeah, you just accept that it's a mechanical failure. Something in the physical system snapped, a hose leaked, a gear jammed. But when it comes to human behavior, to your own daily habits, suddenly we throw all that mechanical logic right out the window.
We completely abandon the mechanics and we move straight into moral judgment.
We do.
And that shift from seeing a problem as a structural failure to seeing it as a moral failure, that's really the foundation of what we're unpacking today.
Which is such an important distinction.
It is, and right at the top, we need to establish the tone here. What we're doing today is not about generating motivation.
No self-help theater.
Exactly. We are taking a calm, direct, objective look at biological facts. Because the reality of why you do what you do is grounded in tangible mechanisms, not the quality of your character.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because when you fail at a goal, the default assumption you probably make is that you're lazy. You think, oh, I'm weak, I'm undisciplined.
Because that's the dominant narrative you hear everywhere.
Right, but that narrative is the willpower lie.
Yes. The actual problem in almost every instance of behavioral failure is biological friction. It's behavioral chaos.
You're relying on a system, sheer willpower, that biologically was just never built to hold up under chronic stress.
It's so fascinating how we try to solve these complex problems. Think about, hunger, cravings, poor sleep, emotional eating.
We try to solve these massive issues with one blunt instrument, which is force.
Right. We tell ourselves, I'll be stricter this time. We try to manufacture motivation out of thin air.
I'll just start again on Monday.
The ultimate battle cry of the willpower lie.
Which brings us right back to the car analogy. Trying to fix behavioral chaos with guilt is literally like trying to fix a broken engine by feeling deeply ashamed of it.
Yeah, guilt doesn't tighten a wrench.
Right. If your engine is missing oil, feeling bad about your personality doesn't lubricate the gears.
It's a profound mismatch of tools. You're bringing an emotional tool to a biological problem.
Like with appetite.
Exactly. Appetite is not a moral issue. Fatigue is not a moral issue. Chronic stress is not a character flaw.
They're biological facts.
They are distinct states of your nervous system and your endocrine system.
And just to ground that, when you say endocrine system, we're talking about the actual physical hormones flooding your brain, right?
Correct. The chemical messengers dictating how you feel. It's an involuntary chemical cascade. Your daily habits don't suddenly become stable just because you felt guilty the night before.
Right. Guilt does not rewrite your hormone profile.
No, it doesn't. Your biology literally does not care about your guilt.
Wow. Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, what happens when you rely entirely on willpower against that biology?
Well, willpower is a highly fragile, energy-expensive cognitive function, and you're using it against a massive, deeply ingrained system.
Let's map that system out, because we're not just talking about some vague sense of temptation here.
No, we're talking about heavy-hitting physiological drivers. The engine driving your behavior includes appetite regulation, dopamine reward pathways, sleep architecture.
Baseline stress levels.
Yes, your automated routines and your physical environment. That is the system. And people try to overpower all of those cascading biological forces with nothing but raw, conscious effort.
It's like trying to stop a freight train by standing on the tracks and, I don't know, thinking really positive thoughts.
Math just doesn't work.
It doesn't. So let's trace the domino effect. Say someone's food structure is weak. They skip breakfast, eat a processed lunch. What happens mechanically?
Well, notice the phrasing. It's not if you are weak, it's if your food structure is weak.
Right.
When the timing or macronutrients of your meals are chaotic, your blood sugar spikes and crashes.
And when it crashes?
Your brain perceives a threat to its energy supply. It releases counter-regulatory hormones like adrenaline and cortisol to mobilize stored energy.
Which amplifies the craving.
Drastically, that craving is a predictable, survival-based response to a structural deficit in your diet. It is not a lack of discipline.
You're literally triggering an emergency alarm in your brain and then getting mad at yourself for hearing the siren. What about sleep? If your sleep is bad, how does that systematically destroy hunger control?
This is a perfect example of the endocrine system at work. When you're sleep deprived, your body alters two critical hormones, ghrelin and leptin.
Okay, ghrelin is the hunger one. Right?
Yes, ghrelin signals hunger and leptin signals satiety or fullness. Even after just one night of poor sleep, your body overproduces ghrelin and suppresses leptin.
So your body is screaming that it's starving while whispering that it's full.
Right. You are operating a machine that is chemically impaired in its ability to regulate appetite. You're fighting a chemical flood, forcing you to consume calories for quick energy.
Okay, and then there's stress, which feels like the biggest domino. When stress is high, why does the impulsive part of us take over?
Because stress literally shifts the balance of power in your brain's architecture.
How so?
Under normal low-stress conditions, your prefrontal cortex is in charge. Executive function, logical thinking, long-term goals.
The adult in the room.
The adult in the room. But when you experience acute or chronic stress, your body releases cortisol. Evolutionarily, stress means danger.
Right, and in danger, you don't need long-term planning.
Exactly. You need immediate survival and relief. So the brain structurally shifts processing power away from the prefrontal cortex and hands it over to the amygdala and the deeper reward centers.
The logical part goes offline.
Yes, and the impulsive relief-seeking part is magnified. You aren't becoming a worse person. You're experiencing a biological state change.
It's a functional reallocation of resources. And if you add a chaotic environment on top of that stress,
your good intentions collapse even faster.
let's talk about that environmental piece. Why does a messy kitchen actually dictate behavior?
Because maintaining an intention like cooking instead of ordering takeout requires cognitive load, working memory, decision-making power.
And the mess drains that.
Yeah. If you have to dig through a cluttered fridge or wash a pan before you can even start, your environment's constantly throwing friction at you.
Which depletes the cognitive load.
Right. The load is depleted and the intention collapses. Not because it wasn't genuine, but because the environment eroded the mental structure holding it up.
Okay, wait. Here's where I want to push back a bit.
Sure.
I understand the biology. I see the mechanisms with cortisol and cognitive load. But the massive frustration here is you look at your failed intentions and you think, I knew what to do.
Yeah.
I have the information. I know how sleep works. Why didn't I just do the right thing? Why isn't knowing it enough to stop the self-sabotage?
It's the most common frustration in behavioral change. You have the knowledge, so you assume you should have the outcome, but the reality is knowledge is not the same thing as control.
So just understanding the engine doesn't mean I can drive the car.
Exactly. You can have an engine schematic memorized down to the last bolt. But if the timing belt snaps at 70 miles an hour, theoretical knowledge doesn't magically give you physical control of the car.
The car reacts to the physics of the breakdown.
Because the body has mechanisms, and they operate whether you understand them or not. Behavior has mechanisms. And crucially, self-sabotage has mechanisms too.
It's not just a malicious ghost in the machine.
No, it's not your subconscious trying to ruin your life. Self-sabotage is a predictable output of a biological system under specific types of pressure.
If you push the system past its limits, it breaks in a predictable way.
Which brings us to a vital distinction. Just because you self-sabotage does not mean you're broken. It simply means your problem has a structure.
Wow. Yeah, if you believe you're fundamentally lazy or weak, the problem is your identity.
And you can't easily fix an identity. You certainly can't fix it by yelling at yourself. But if the problem has a structure...
then it becomes a puzzle. It's solvable.
Exactly. Once a problem has a physical or environmental structure, it can be understood and changed.
That's where we move from theory into application. The real goal here is clarity. When the mechanism becomes clear, you stop blaming yourself for the wrong thing.
You stop treating every failure as proof of a bad character. You stop trying to build a stable life using willpower and shame, and you start building with routine, environmental design, and biological regulation.
So what does this actually look like tomorrow morning? How do you apply this structural lens?
You step out of the role of the judge and you step into the role of the investigator.
You ask better questions.
Yes. What is making my adherence unstable? When my habits fall apart, what collapses first?
Is it sleep? Food structure? Are you skipping meals? Is your environment too chaotic?
You're looking for the very first domino, because it is almost never your willpower that falls first. Willpower is the last line of defense. It gets crushed only after your sleep, nutrition, and environment have already collapsed.
Which gives us a very concrete, practical takeaway.
The takeaway is this. The next time you experience a behavioral failure, you break a routine, give in to a craving, skip the workout. Do not ask yourself, what is wrong with me?
Don't let that moral judgment in the room.
Do not allow it. Instead, you ask, what system failed underneath this behavior?
What system failed underneath this behavior? That instantly changes the temperature of the room. It takes the heat off your ego and puts it on the mechanics.
It's a smarter, more clinical question. It gives you a path forward. You can fix a system. You can adjust a sleep schedule or prep a meal. You cannot fix a vague sense of personal brokenness.
Before we leave you with one final thought, if you want to dig further into the underlying structures of human behavior, you can find the book, the articles, and the FAQ for this project by going to sandquist.me. That's sandwist.me.
I mean, when you really zoom out and look at the implications of this structural approach, it forces us to reconsider the concept of identity itself.
How so?
Well, if our physical environment, our sleep quality, and our underlying endocrine systems have so much dictatorial power over our daily choices, if they are the forces actually pulling the levers while we mistakenly credit our own willpower, it raises a significant question for you to mull over. How much of what we consider our unchangeable personality or character is actually just a byproduct of the invisible mechanical systems we happen to live in?